Essentially, we have three classes of wealth, and it's pretty much the rich people, and then you have mid class and low class. And what actually dictates the difference between the people is the way they manage wealth. So essentially, rich people, they tend to invest their money by default by using investment funds. So they just, as long as they're getting excess money in their accounts, they just deploy that money to the investment funds on a passive way. And while the rest keeps the money on the bank, they're just allocating to investment funds, which honestly is a very similar structure. The difference is investment funds provide part of the gains on the investments to you, actually a big part, and banks just get all the benefits of their own investments for themselves. And so the problem in this is the money is going down from the past century, which means essentially that you're losing per year 3% in purchase power, which means in the beginning of the year, if you could buy, let's say, 100 products on the market, now you can only buy 97 in the end of the year. And again, the longer period it is there, the more it goes down. So if it's staying for 2 years, it's just 6% and keeps going this way. So this is what actually happens. Because the money is permanently going down, even if it's a low amount, it never stops to go down. And we have lifetimes and we have an X amount of hours to work in our lives. So, what happens in practice is that by what we can see, people are just working more and more in their lives. They're extending how much they have to work throughout their life careers, and they're still going to retirement without having that big of retire pensions, because as the money goes down, it means that if you have a retire pension that is on a fixed amount, each year you're having less purchase power because the money value keeps going down. So we can never actually catch up to the trend by having the money on the bank, because we don't live forever and we don't work forever. But money goes down forever by the trend that is taking. So, again, the sooner we realize this and change where we put our money, the better. Again, you think your money is safe on the bank, and meanwhile, what they're doing with your money is just allocating the money to other people that need the money. So they're just investing the money that you have, and it's technically being lended to other people. And investment funds do pretty much the same thing, except they give you part of the gains, which is a biggest part of the returns on the investments. So you have the division in terms of classes, and we know that by default, rich people, which is a lower number of people in the world, they keep deploying the money to investments. So naturally, investments tend to go up permanently over time. And we can see this if we're going to look into some global markets. Essentially, you see that the market goes up and down in value, but if you extend the timeline from years, you understand it's pretty much an uptrend. that never stops to go up. Sometimes you have breaks, but then there's just an uptrend going and offsets the break and breaks to a new high. So this is pretty much been happening for years, on a very long period of time. So we should actually assume this is granted to occur. Again, we think it's risky to invest because it's what people tell you, but this is not true at all. What you have as granted by having the money on the bank is that you're losing purchase power, so you're losing how much your money can buy over time, as time goes by. And this is granted. So essentially, you're granting yourself to lose money continuously and permanently by having it on the bank. This is the truth. And when I got to understand this, actually, no one told me this. I was seeing the trends on the markets as I was studying the markets. And then I eventually reached out to some people that got the same understanding and just confirmed the same situation. So, again, I think you can be hearing people, but when it comes to this, honestly, you shouldn't, because the biggest part of the world doesn't understand how things actually work. That's why they cannot break through and become rich. Because if you invest your money, instead of losing money over time, you start to acquire money over time. So you acquire purchase power, essentially, on your money, because your investments will go up in value. And now you're actually having the treadmill or the flow of the river going in your favor instead of going against you. Again, imagine yourself going through life and you are on the top of a treadmill, and the treadmill is just slowly going backwards against you. And every time you're up, you can run and you can go past the treadmill in terms of speed, so you can actually move forward. But then you have to rest and you start to go backwards. Then you eventually have some situation, you're not working, or it's weekend, you're not working, and you start to go backwards. Then you die, and you're pretty much going backwards till someone catch up with your money and starts to run with it again by working. But on the long term, if you stop moving, it's going backwards. Now, if you invert the situation, you understand that you actually don't even have to run. You don't even have to walk. You can stand still and the treadmill will guide you forward. You're sleeping and you're moving forward. So, you don't, when it comes to a certain period of time in which the treadmill is compounding how much money you're attaining, it comes to a point that the passive returns you're getting on your investments are enough to sustain your life forever. So, as long as you don't take the money off the investments, you don't have to do anything, you're being paid without working. So, this is what happens to rich people when they attain a certain amount of wealth. And this is the big gap we can see between the classes. It's true that rich people can acquire way more money on the same time frame, but if you extend this over a long period of time, see if they couldn't invest the money, they would eventually go lower in class to mid class because their money will be devaluing permanently. So even if they have, let's say, a company providing a huge cash flow, if the next generation couldn't eventually work things out on the company, went bankrupt, they would start to go backwards if they didn't invest the money. So they would go down from the position of being rich to mid lower class eventually over time, unless they have to run, they have to work. So this is pretty much the situation people are choosing to put themselves on. I know that a big part of the world doesn't really understand how this plays out, but the sooner you get to understand, the sooner you can start to change how you will dictate your life. Because the truth is, if we are working for pretty much a huge part of our lives, it means that for as much as we don't want to admit it, we are effectively almost working here in our lives. So we cannot just say that this is not true at all. Even if your focus is not on the work, what you're doing in your lifetime is pretty much work. Now, if you start to change this trend and you allocate your money to investment funds, then you start to understand how things actually change for you. And then you can stop to work at some point because the wealth you attain will give you the same returns you're getting on the work without working. And it keeps going higher and higher, so you're getting even more, which means it can pay for your lifestyle. You can do pretty much what you want to do. And again, you're just getting more and more cash passively on investment returns than what you can eventually pay at some point. So you can just have this wealthy lifestyle doing whatever you want, and you'll be fine anyways. Again, this is the reality. And if we understand that rich people, which essentially attains the big majority of the money in the world, if they passively allocate their money to investments, this means that even if you fear the trend to reverse, it's technically not possible because they don't have a place to put their money besides investments unless they want to lose their money over time. But because they understood this a long time ago, they will never do such thing. So, and even if they do it, or part of them decided to do it, it would mean that part of the money would just diminish over time, while most people, being on the investment trend, will just acquire more and more. So the trend will just remain the same perpetually. I know people fear the trends to invert or just do something different, but this is what people convince you to fear. As long as you have fear, you will never change what you're doing. And if you'll never change, you'll be working for your lifetime, even if you don't want to. So, again, let me tell you this. A long time ago, taxes were actually not implemented at all. There were no taxes. And we really don't know what that is. But it was a reality in which you were paying no taxes at all. Then they started to propose taxes. But taxes were considered to not be possible to implement because they were violating human freedom and laws. So it was against the freedom of humanity to implement taxes, which is something that is granted for us. And it has been for such a long time, we don't even get to discuss this. So before, what happened was the government systems, they could only acquire wealth with investments, like the common citizen can do. And as they implemented taxes, they're just capturing a big part of people money. even if you don't think it's a big part. I'm going to tell you now how much it is. If you have a contract in a company you're working for, which is pretty much a standardized situation, on your contract between you and the company that is paying to you, you're losing, before you see the money, 34.75% of it. So a big chunk is paid by the company, which is paying around 23%. And the remaining part, it's like 12%, it's being paid by your side. And this money is captured before it reaches your bank account. Almost 35% gone. You don't even see it. And then everything you buy, it should have 23% of taxes, because anything we have to buy, almost everything, is on 23% taxes. And this puts the numbers into a 57%, 58 actually. Now, if you add some expenses that pretty much everyone has, which is house expenses, car expenses, and whatever you're paying in your life, if you just make the numbers, it's roughly 60% of the money that is produced by your work, by your time working, is being retained by the government systems in the world. Again, this changes from place to place, but it's more or less around these numbers. It could be significantly lower in some places. There's places that are free of taxes, but the majority of the world, I would say the developed world, works like this. So 60% of your sweat just goes to the government. And then the government tells you that you have free education and free healthcare, which is a lie. Because I can assure you, if you paid me 60% of how much you earn every year, I would grant you a healthcare and education system. In fact, the education system was made in the industrial times, in which they had to make people to be formed to essentially be workers for companies. So our education system actually make you learn in a way and convince you how life it has to be, in a way that you're just considering to work for some company. You can have different jobs, but the options that you are presented is that you're going to work for a company. So this is how we are being made by the system that is implemented. And this is the reality of the developed world, which were different in a long period of time. But this is the problem people have. Because people are too busy running life, as pretty much everyone is, people forget to ask questions. People forget to understand what actually matters. Because the world tells you how you should behave, what you should be asking. You forget you have free will to actually set the course into a different direction, which is not the crowd direction. So, if you understand this possibility, you can always do this. And you come to clearance in a lot of things that are happening and they are the reality. But you can actually get to decide in your life how you do the things. And the outcome you get can be way different from what you have today. The choice is yours. And the sooner you act, the better.